Hello, everybody. My name is Jose Matos. You are tuned into the Worldwide News Network, and today we'll be speaking to Emily Zuniga, newly elected Speaker of the House of the United Subdivisions of New San Eterno. Hello, Speaker Zuniga.
Hello.
We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. Let's delve into some questions about your role and the current state of affairs in Globe SMP. First question. As the newly elected Speaker of the House, what do you see as your primary responsibilities in the current climate of Globe SMP?
Honestly, I think primarily we're going to focus on, passing a lot of laws into place, or I guess more so bills and then laws, right? And really working with the president and the chief of justice to ensure that these laws are going to benefit the community and, establish, proper protection for everybody who decides to join the server, as well as appointing more representatives to the House of Representatives. We don't have many members in there, so that's also going to be one of my primary responsibilities.
Interesting. How do you plan to facilitate communication and cooperation, I said, between different factions within the House?
Well, obviously, a lot of communication will happen, not just inside the game, but outside of the game. I really want to work closely, like I said, with the Chief of Justice and the President. So that means talking with them privately outside of the server, as well as any new representatives that come into the House outside of the server. Maybe having our own group chat and talking with each other, or even on the server, talking with each other and debating on certain things that we agree upon, disagree upon. And that way we can, effectively communicate with each other to work effectively.
Great response. What legislative priorities do you intend to focus on in the wake of the server's reset?
So obviously in the last server, we had a little bit more established. So we had a lot of laws going through, but I think right now, since we're just, beginning that process again, as in gathering the materials that we need and more so focusing on necessity rather than wants, I think a lot of it's just going to focus on very like broad principles, right? People having protections for the things that they own, not just maybe land and territory that they claim, but also their items in general, right? Obviously, we'll have rules in place such as, killing other members or anything that, killing other pets or anything like that. And I think another thing is just establishing, safe and establishing rules for new players that might want to join the realm as well.
Okay. So now we're going to be asking some questions about the current challenges that our Globe SMP faces.
Mhm.
So, how has the recent hard reset of Globe SMP affected the legislative agenda?
Well, I think in our last era, there was a strong emphasis on focusing sort of on the economic side, right? Establishing an economy, establishing trade. But I think as of now, since we've kind of reset that and we're back to, getting our territory and building it up, I think we're going to see this shift in sort of just focusing on the people inside certain territories, right? People living there being represented, what rights they have, what right the head of that territory has, and rules established on people coming in and out of those territories, or, ways of traveling, etc.
All right. Do you, if any, plan on any measures that for considering to help citizens who have lost structures or maybe progress due to the reset?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, moving from this new server, we all had built something where we probably lost a ton of materials. And as a result, I think right now is the best time for the community sort of get together and, if you can help out other members and gathering those materials that they lost and sort of already start with trading by, if maybe I have a ton of gravel and somebody else has a material that I need, we can sort of set up that trade system and slowly but surely start gaining those materials that we need to make these structures again and sort of build our nation again. And obviously, I think in terms of new members, we discussed having sort of the spawn point area is in this island. Um, And I think it would be really beneficial if we could get something passed where we can maybe set up a small base, a temporary base for new players to sort of start in, especially if they maybe can't fight off mobs as easily, with plenty of resources around them so that they can make their own weapons and materials and such. And yeah, that's sort of what I have in mind.
That's a great response from you. How do you plan to address the loss of add-ons from our legislative perspective? Do you believe that we need to address it?
Honestly, I think we should address it just because I think it made up such a large part of the server last time. People utilized it all the time. People really liked the added animals. They had a lot of them as pets. A lot of them used them for certain materials. And I know the weapons feature was huge with a lot of people just because it made life a little bit more simpler and convenient for a lot of players. And, that's a huge thing to, not have anymore.
Okay.
And so I do think it should be addressed. And it's unfortunate, but I do think we can work to this. We can work on this together as a community.
Sounds fair. Now we're gonna move on to some governance and cooperation questions. How do you intend on working with President Nordblum and Chief Justice Renteria to ensure effective governance?
You know, in the last server, I communicated a lot with these two people, not just in the server, but outside the server too. And that's going to be a lot of what happens as well. President Nordblum, she's great at communicating with. We have a lot of great conversations. And I think I can really, contact her anytime and say, hey, I have so and so on mine. Have you thought about so and so? She's a great communicator in that regard, as well as the Chief Justice, Mr. Materia. He's really great at communicating as well, and I think he also, establishes great communication in our server's group chat as well. He usually holds votes and usually seems to get the public opinion on certain issues, and I think that's really great. So I think in terms of establishing communication with them, um, they're amazing on that regard. And I think I'll have no problem talking with them on certain issues regarding our server. And we're going to work together to see what the server will need and what it will benefit from, all that stuff.
Okay, okay. Um, what steps are you taking to maintain the stability of the government during the transitional period? Because as we know, we're going from one world to another. Do you believe that there will be any fall or rise of new nations?
I definitely think that the last server sort of gave people a taste of, being a part of nation. We had a lot of people. We had a few people who had their own independent nations. But most people, were a part of an already existing nation. And I think it may have given them a taste of maybe them wanting to have their own nation. So I do think we're going to see a rise in maybe new nations. Because I think people enjoy the freedom that comes with establishing their own laws in their own nations rather than being part of a pre-existing nation and having to abide by those laws, maybe those laws that they think are too strict and such. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I think of that.
Okay. And how do you plan to balance the need for different subdivisions within the United Subdivisions of New San Eterno?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
How do you plan to balance the need for different states?
hmm I absolutely think it's something that's gonna have to be passed on, not just in the House of Representatives, but also the Senate, because I think there probably will be a lot more states that are gonna need. We're gonna have to look at their needs and what they want. And I think the way I plan to go about that is I want to form adequate relationships with all these people and talk to them one on one to see what these needs are, and then use my better judgment to determine if, this is something that we can help or improve on or help them get these needs, and see if it's something viable that I can work on with the Senate or the president to be able to deliver on those needs.
All right. Now let's talk a little bit about foreign relations and maybe a little bit more on the same subject of other nations. What is
Mhm.
your stance on developing relationships with other nations in Globe SMP, such as the North Folk, or where Gordon is currently president?
I'm all for foreign relationships. I really am. I think that it establishes good trade with foreign nations. I think, unfortunately, I think sometimes these other nations are just going to there's always going to be some material that they have an abundance of that we might need and we'll have to trade them for. And I think it sets up good, relationships with these other nations too. I think everybody, nobody wants to think of the threat of war, any of their nations being harmed in any way because of another nation. And I think having healthy communication with that nation and establishing trade and anything foreign related, I think establishes a good relationship with that nation and kind of, decreases that threat that there could be, war violence between our two nations.
Okay. And do you think that the reset might affect international relations within the server?
Could you repeat that?
Do you believe that the current reset that we're just going through right now, transitioning from one world to another, do you believe that that would affect international relations within the server?
I do think it might. I think that the reset sort of, unfortunately, like we mentioned, it took away a lot of add-ons that people had previously really enjoyed. And it's kind of, we have to rebuild and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people right now are a little bit tense and they're in a way sort of, they have a little bit of anger in them. But I think that maybe it also, while it may, how do you say, increase tensions between nations, it could also decrease it. Where we just reset the server, it's kind of a new beginning, and maybe it's a new start, and maybe we can learn from the previous server on previous, foreign trade that we had or communication with foreign nations. We can learn about those and maybe what we did wrong or where we went a wrong way and sort of improve on that for the future, So I think there is maybe a little bit of tension right now, but I think that it also provides us a better way of knowing what to do in the future for our service.
Okay, that sounds great. Now we're going to focus on the future outlook. I only have three questions for you to end this
Mhm.
off. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing Nuestra Termos in the coming weeks?
I think in the coming weeks, we're going to see a little bit of I think we're going to see a lot of scarcity issues when it comes to materials. Not so much scarcity, but I do think, some players are going to have trouble adjusting to the new world and are going to have to collect a lot of materials to start building their new territories or in new states. And I think we're going to see a lot of problems in maybe food and shelter, and providing adequate protection from mobs. I think we're going to see some of that.
Okay.
But the hope is that we'll be able to combat that through, working together.
That's a great motto. How do you plan to involve citizens in the rebuilding and decision-making process?
Absolutely. We were talking, I previously mentioned that the Chief of Justice, Rentari, he does a great job in holding community vote and community polls. And I think that's one way, just one of the ways that is great at involving people. Talking in the group chat, sending out polls on maybe what we should do, and having calls, just even calling each other when we're on the server playing together is a great way to have discussions around what we're going to do and, what we need and how we can help each other out. So I think it's a great way in bringing people together is, communicating with them. And that's a lot of what's going to be focused on. We're going to be communicating with people. And if they, really want to play their part in helping us, decide on new terms, then I think they'll be more active, not only in playing, but in communicating with us. I think that's one effective way like that we're, going to be reaching out to these people and they're going to be able to be involved with us. And obviously we'll probably have more things to come.
All right. That's great. I have just one final question for you. Is there
Mhm.
anything you would like to convey to the audience, any message in these times? Oh.
Thousands. No, I want to say, first of all, thank you for all the votes. I really enjoy the support, and I really, really am excited for this new server. And I want to stress the importance of community with this because I think a lot of us are maybe a little bit more skilled than other players or a little bit more experienced than other players. So we may look down upon other people that are joining, that are new players, you know, and are rebuilding a lot of things. But my advice is not to look down on these people, but maybe help them out a bit, you know? Maybe if they don't know a hack that could really help them out in, you know, building progress faster, then maybe share that with them. You know, I think not only is it going to make you, you know, closer with the community around you and just the server, I think you're going to see a lot of progress on both ends, you know, and that's kind of what I want to stress. I know there's going to be a lot of debate on, you know, laws and what should be on what, you know, but I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that, you know, we are more than one person. We have to think of others, and we have to think of what's going to benefit the community as a whole, you know. And that's sort of what I want to stress. But also, you know, thank you for this position. And I plan to do my very best and work with the president and the chief of justice as needed. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, I can say that we probably ended at the right time because you just took away all my notes from the table.
Okay.
But yeah, that was Speaker Zuniga for you. Thank you for sharing your insights and plans with us.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.